So, anyone remember anything in reference to SOHO routers or what we mentioned in previous sessions? Just briefly mention what it was.
Small office host router.
Very close, yeah. Small office, home office routers. Basically, those are the ones that you will use usually in any little mom and pop locations. As we stated, mom and pop locations are locations that have less than 50 employees usually. The textbook pages inside the grade book is 406 through 477. In case if anyone wants to be following or is wondering from where it's coming from. Our main objectives is to be able to compare and contrast the internet connection types and features, compare and contrast all network standards and encryption types. We want to be able to explain the role of a router and describe the differences between wired and wireless. Describe how to install, configure, deploy SOHO routers. Identify common pitfalls and common problems that may come up, and describe how to solve those common problems. So what is going to help us out here in being able to find out, especially if there's so many types and some of them are so integrated with being switch, router, access point at the same time, what mindsets can I use to be able to help me? There's going to be one or two that I really got to be able to get into.
Adaptation and research.
Is that a mindset, research? If you keep on researching or doing something over and over until you get it right, what would that be?
Sounds like open mind.
Persistence.
Correct, persistence. So we got to be persistent. And also we're going to have to be, in behavioral sides, we're going to have to be able to communicate with each other. If we're not even dealing with SOHO routers, we're dealing with routers, we have to be able to communicate with the various different teams to make sure that we are able to identify correctly our problems. We have to be clear and concise in our communication to be able to resolve it in a timely manner. Next slide. Let's see. So, Justin, can you help me out with this slide?
What is the internet? The internet is a global system of networks that links billions of computers for communicating, sharing information, and resources. It consists of millions of private, public, academic, business, and government networks linked by broad arrays of electronic, wireless, and optical networking technologies. Physically, the internet is a huge TCP IP-based network, physical mesh topology, traffic passing through a complex system of routers.
Okay. Sorry about that, wrong button. So, do we understand that obviously, I've stated before, that the internet is the wild, wild west. So each country, you could say, has, as you can see, I have awesome, that's my cloud, yeah. So you can say this is the US, he has his own little cloud. There is a backbone that goes to the Europe one, transcontinental. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that one. And then you have the Americas ones that go that way. Obviously, you gotta feel me out. Obviously, there is a lot of tunnels going this way, that way. And we also have our little doohickey here with our satellites throughout the world. So not only do we have wired transcontinental or transatlantic connections, all these different states itself has its own network. So all these backbones are interconnected. All these routers that are out here have tables that let them know where they are in this mesh topology. Everyone remember that in a mesh topology, there means there's connection in everywhere. There's one connection to everywhere. So how do I find out real quick a mesh? Anyone know how to find out how many links of communication there is?
Usually it's just every device connected to every other.
Correct. But how can I mathematically find out how many lines of communications there is?
Is it the number of devices and the number of cables going from each device to the other or something like that?
Yes, correct. So how would I find that number out?
Is it a number of devices by the power of how many devices there is?
Almost. It's the number of devices times the number of devices minus 1 minus 1. So let's see here. If we count it physically, there is 1, 2, 3. You agree so far? That's the outer ones. 1, 2, 3. Then from this guy, 1, 2, 3. What was it? And then from n minus 1, yeah. 6. There's supposed to be 5. If I recall correctly. It's supposed to be 5. Somebody's gonna have to help me out here. 1, 2, 3. Now I forgot. This guy to this guy, this guy to this guy. But where's the other part? I think it was n minus 1. We could get it right here. I got it. I can look it up. Hold on a second. That was n minus 1, but I could get it wrong. Lines of communication. Wait. Yeah, so I'm sorry, divided by 2, not minus 1. Divided by 2. So it's n times n minus 1 divided by 2. So I have 6, right? 3 times 2 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. That was the equation. Sorry about that. That makes sense? So if I have 4, it's 4 times 3 is 12. Divided by 2 is 6. If I have 4 routers. Questions? Does it make sense, or did I just confuse you?
It's the number of channels.
The number of routers, right? You count the number of routers, you multiply that by the number of routers minus 1. So if there's 4 routers, I multiply that by 3, and then I divide that by 2. In this case, I had 3 routers, right? So 3 routers times 2 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. There's 3 lines of communication.
That's showing, okay, yeah. How many lines of communication?
Where do you get 3 from?
The lines of communication are the actual media, like cables going from each router to the router.
Virtual, you gotta feel me out there. Yeah, virtually,
Oh.
yeah. Whatever the routes, there's mesh, there's a connection somehow or other through the pops that connect one to the other. If it's in a mesh, each one touches each other. So the actual equation. All right, let me take off the eraser portion of this. Go back to drawing, my beautiful drawing.
Possibly in a darker color.
So that's n. That would help. Color. If I could ever figure out the color on this crap. This beautiful. That was n minus times n minus 1 divided by 2. That's the equation. N times n minus 1 over 2. So if I have 4 routers, that's 4 times 3 divided by 2. If I have 5 routers, it's 5 times 4 divided by 2. So if I have a total of 5 routers, there is a total of 10 lines of communication in a mesh. Each one connects to each other. So here's my 1, my 2, my 3, my 4, my 5, my 6, which is a 3 times 4 equals 6. And the 4 different routers. Let me see. I think I could do this fatter. Can I do this fatter? Yes, I could do it. So there we are.
I have no idea what I'm looking up.
Huh?
I see a
I don't
kite.
know,
A kite and a
No.
person on the kite. Yeah, there's a person on the kite and he has balloons.
I told you I was a very good person in drawing. So here's this router. That's that router. This is this router. That's that router. So you have 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, plus the 2 that cross each other is 6. Because 4 routers times the 3 is 12, and I divide that by 2 is equal to 6. Do we get it now?
Hold on, repeat that one more
Lost on the
time.
last one.
All right, we have 4 routers, right? Here's my 4 routers. This guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. My lines of communication is the red ones. So I'm gonna count from here to this guy is 1 line. From this guy right here to this guy, that's my 2nd line, right? Here's my 3rd line from this guy to this guy. And then to close the loop, here's my 4th line, right? Now, I'm connecting this guy, which is my 1st router, to my 3rd router. That's my next line.
Okay.
And then the 2nd router to the 3rd router over here, to the 4th router, or whatever you want to call it over here, is my next line. So there was 4 on the outside and 2 on the inside is equal to 6. The formula to make it easy so that when you get 10 routers, now if I have 10 routers, it'll be a big pain in the butt to figure out what it is. If I don't have a formula, it'll become very tedious. So they tell you then it is 10, right? Because there's 10 routers, times the 9 over the 2. This tells me that it's 90 divided by 2. Therefore, there is 45 lines of communication in that mesh.
Okay.
Questions? Doubts? That's the mesh and how to calculate it. Continue. Look, that's not one. Let's have uses. They're able to ensure in a mesh that it doesn't matter. So whatever router may go down, whatever pop, which is their local pop, may go down, that's not going to impact. They'll again recalculate the mesh and obviously see temporarily turn off that route in their tables and allow you to get to your place without any issues. Any questions on the internet itself and the mesh topology and how it works? Next, as we stated, internet connections can be established through many of the following. You have satellite, you have the wireless G, you have WiMAX, Wi-Fi, you have tethering through hotspots, and then you have your wired section, as everybody is used to from back in the day. The wired is the dial-up modems, your ISDNs, your DSL, your cable TVs, and your fiber optics, depending on your flavor and how you want it. Any questions on these internet connections?
What is a WiMAX?
Wi-Fi Max? Wi-Fi Max is now what is being provided by some providers out there to give you basically internet. It's a worldwide broadband communication.
But done by Wi-Fi, so it's similar to internet in the air, right?
You could say, yeah, you could say instead of going through a satellite, it's going through a broadband Wi-Fi. There is providers out there giving that right now.
It's like a Wi-Fi extender almost, but like throughout the other side of the world.
No, I don't think it's a Wi-Fi extender. You could think about it. You probably have heard of it in Comcast, for instance. That's a WiMAX network where they're giving you broadband communications technology and they're through a service. I believe that's
So that's an infrastructure kind of thing, right? Infrastructure mode where it has a line and then somewhere it has its Wi-Fi and it gives it to the client.
yeah. You could see it now. I mean, and does anybody have Xfinity, for instance? There's
I
hotspots.
used to have it.
They have hotspots all over now. There also
Yeah,
is.
they have like hotspots that you just have to log into your Xfinity account and then you could use it.
Mhm. Now they're and these, if it's not your house, because Xfinity also uses your house, by the way. So if you have it and you don't turn it off, they actually broadcast Xfinity Wi-Fi off of all of the routers that they offer. So let's say you have it in your house or you have it in your office, whoever's passing by sees that broadcast of Xfinity Wi-Fi. It's the same aspect, but they're using large towers for this. Large towers to be able to give you the Wi-Fi internet. It's wireless broadband communications.
And that's why, like, pretty much almost anywhere you go, you can almost always find some Xfinity.
Pretty much, if you'll notice that. So if you ever notice that sometimes your network's dragging down, that's because basically everybody's piggybacking in that area through those different Wi-Fi antennas that are there. And remember, they only promise you so much, and since they have so much bandwidth anyways coming towards your house, and the antenna that they have supposedly goes faster in speed than the one that they're providing or the broadband that they're giving you, they can actually do that. Obviously, you have the choice that if you have your own router, you can choose not to broadcast that you're not going to be broadcasting that. But they have it there. That's how they're able to use it.
Is that a security issue too? I'm just curious. That sounds like a security issue.
It's really it's like a wireless microwave. It's not the cellular like the 4G and 5G. It's Wi-Fi that's being broadcast out there, broadband. I believe it should be under obviously some ID and password per se. It's not going to be completely open.
Yeah, but they still have a way to kind of communicate with it. That's why I'm thinking like there could be issues. Yeah, you can have it separate, but since you're communicating with it, just like with the new issues with virtual machines, there are ways you can kind of like bypass it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just another communication. You know, it's an alternative. If let's say if you can't get cable or DSL in your house, it's not available. So now this long-range wireless network, with these antennas that they have there, people are now in. I know I used to have my sister's Uncle Bill. Basically, he was in the boondocks, so he didn't have anything except for satellite. So this would probably be much faster than satellite because if they can get the long range wireless from these antennas, it's going to be obviously a good replacement for being and cheaper most likely than maybe having or to wait for DSL to get to your areas.
I can see that. I was in a similar situation where there was no cable except Xfinity Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if it's faster than I would say Xfinity Xfinity the actual cable, but at least it will be better than nothing, right? It's
But
still
it's
obviously
no.
it's still being used in some locations, I'm pretty sure, because there's plenty of people that don't have DSL and they don't have cable coming to their house. So satellite is horrible. It's usually real slow. Any other questions on WiMAX or? Okay. So POTS. So dial-up communication. That's the plain old telephone service, or dial-up is what it's called. Obviously, that, believe it or not, is still being used. It's Modem standard is V92. Your best bet is about 128K. I don't think they have too much. It's obviously very, very slow. This is as good as sending a fax to somebody. That's one of the reasons that at the time, Blockbuster didn't believe that anybody was going to be using Netflix, because since POTS lines were still one of the main ISPs out there, who in the world would want to wait so long to just stream a movie? Nobody's going to do that. Unfortunately, DSL came out and some other broadband access came out shortly after that, and they were not prepared. So it got ugly real quick. ISDN, that's actually still being used. Can somebody help me here with this slide? Jordan?
Wired connections, ISDN communication, integrated services digital network. It is a digital technology that supports multiple 64 kilobits per second channels, known as B. Is that a B? I'm sorry, I have a thing, small b. Known as B on a single connection. It has the capability to carry voice, video, or data. The physical connection is through the RJ45 cable and a modem called a terminal adapter, or TA. ISDN circuits are classified as basic rate interface, BRI, or primary rate interface, PRI.
Correct. So the ISDNs basically are much faster than dial-up. Each channel has a 64 kbs compared to just having only either 64 or 128. Now, we got to take in mind, when I say 64 or 128, that is the top, and we also lose for the actual connection, right? Remember now that there's a protocol that establishes my connections. Whatever I'm doing, there's got to be a tunnel that gets created. When that tunnel gets created over these old POTS lines, you lose speed to that. So there's dedicated bandwidth just for that. On top of that, there's never guaranteed the top rate. So now here, this could carry voice, video, and data. It's still being used throughout the world with a lot of people who cannot afford very expensive backup. They actually go with this because this is actually dials out. You could actually just dial out and bring it up, and it'll bring you up temporarily so that you can at least continue working. Any questions?
This is still in use, right?
Yeah. It's mainly to like I said, to facilitate for backup and stuff like that. So you'll put it has a modem. These ISDNs go into the back of the modem. You could, I believe, if I recall, most of these modems can fit up to 4 ISDNs. So it's a great feature if you don't want to pay.
So it's a cheap backup.
Yeah. It's not being used as a primary that I'm aware of anymore. And even then, a lot of these places are getting rid of this, and it may be coming out. I'm not sure what's the cost nowadays, but it may be even cheaper just to get yourself a DSL and use DSL as your backup and create a VPN tunnel over the internet. But ISDN basically is a great way, at least, to have your backup. And at the same time, there is facilities that were being brought up. In other words, instead of me paying for a T1 circuit, I would just bring up the actual WIC side of this, or the WAN, the WIC card that we said was the Wide Area Networks Interface card. That WIC card, basically, that import, I would use it to be able to get out to the internet. That would happen a lot in these facilities, like in St. Croix, in St. Thomas, Trinidad, Tobago, all these small little countries that just only have sometimes maybe 2 or 3 packages a day, or even maybe 10 packages a day. Why would we want to pay for a T1 circuit that costs thousands of dollars when they're only going to be transmitting maybe for half an hour? Make sense? So therefore, we only give them this, and it was a cheap solution at that time. Next one here. Let's see. DeAndre, can you help me out with this one?
Wired connections, network cable communications. DSL, group of technologies that provide high-speed data transmission over existing telephone wiring. It has several variants, which differ in data rates and distance and limitations. ADSL or SDSL can use the same phone line for voice and data at the same time. Cable internet uses existing cable lines, always connected. TV signals and PC data signals share same coax cable. Cable modem converts PC's digital signals to analog. Fiber optic, no line sharing. It could be multi-mode or single mode. Television, internet data, voice communication.
Thank you.
Ron?
So, any questions on reference to DSL, the ADSL or SDSL, the cable, internet? Any doubts?
For optic fiber, it says no line sharing. Is that because the line goes one way?
No line sharing means that over here, if you see that the cable here gets used both for the TV signal and for the actual internet. Same thing in ADSL. It actually shares the line of the actual phone with the signaling of the data coming across. Here, there is no lines sharing. Voice communications on a separate fiber optic, your internet's on a separate one, and your television on a separate one. Separate fiber. So you see that this is the telco. The telco comes in here, right? But even if the telco comes in here, the voice is coming through here. So when it gets to them in that box, that distribution box that I told you, they will have a fiber optic going for voice information and a fiber optic for internet data. Then the television would do obviously the same thing. It sends the television signal there. I'm pretty sure you guys know that now. I think, is it? AT&T has television when they come into your location with actual fiber to your house. Those are all separated out.
Expensive bundles after a year.
Yep. It's pretty cheap.
That's how they get you.
But it gets pretty nice. Any other questions on DSL, asynchronous, synchronous, and cable or fiber? Okey-dokey. So what's the variance between asynchronous and synchronous? Can somebody tell me?
Is it referring to the data speed?
It's talking about the data speed, something about the data speed itself and how it guarantees. I don't want to give up the whole answer, but
Because I know there's asymmetrical and symmetrical upload and download speed.
Exactly, that's what it's talking about.
Okay, because we all basically consumer uses asymmetrical, more download than upload.
That's correct. So the asymmetrical, usually that's the one that they offer to you, which is the cheapest because everybody is more concerned about downloading the latest and trend or downloading email or downloading movies. Download. They're not usually uploading information. Very little upload information going on. So they'll buy the cheaper bundle. But if I'm a business and I want to guarantee my speed going up and down because I am pushing information out, I would be buying the synchronous DSL. Now that guarantees both ends. Now both ends will be 100 megabits. Instead of just being 100 megabits and maybe 10 upload, both the download and the upload would be at 100. Obviously, that's not a 100% guarantee, but it's selling you the bundle at that price. compared to an 8 DSL, they only guarantee 110. That's what they're guaranteeing. Any questions on asynchronous or synchronous DSL? All right. Wireless connections. Teresa, can you help me with this one?
Okay, so wireless connections. Satellite connection is an option for many rural locations that lack the option of connecting to an IP WAN or the internet via physical media. Max download 125, max upload 3. Two significant design considerations, including the following: propagation delay or latency, sensitivity to weather conditions.
That's correct. Thank you very much. Any questions? I believe I stated many times, satellite, although it is a great alternative to any given situation of someone who cannot get anything else, it's great. Awesome. I don't have anything else, fine and dandy. As for being reliable, it is the least reliable communication. As soon as you get cloud or any type of interference between you and the line of sight of that satellite, you will lose and or completely go down. On top of that, there's a lot of latency. As we stated, TCP/IP looks for guarantees, and due to these latencies, sometimes it starts retransmitting information because it gets lost up there and or believes that it was lost. So it even propagates more delay because it's actually trying to request for information again when it's probably just on its way. So it just dips the chip, as Seinfeld likes to say. Any questions?
So I'm surprised that the upload speed is so low and the download is high compared to it.
The guaranteed of download versus upload, because imagine if everyone starts uploading, and I guarantee you that much information, these satellites are being shared. All these satellites are being shared, not only for your communications, but you know, it's some of them are being used also by these telephone, by a TV, by other businesses who pay for a private connection. Instead of going over the public side of it, they'll go over the private side of that satellite. So they can't guarantee high speeds. They have to make sure that each satellite that's out there has enough for each area. And on top of it, it's usually meant for rural areas, so you're going up and then back down.
And it's called Earth satellite. That's like a line, like a infrastructure where you have a Wi-Fi. Well, not Wi-Fi because it's using Wi-Fi or some kind of connection that then connects to the Earth station, and then Earth station broadcasts it to the satellite.
All satellite talks to all antennas that are looking for information. So there is no repeater on the ground, per se. Only if you are sending information, you see that Earth station there? If you are sending information as an internet service provider, then that is the door that you see there. That would be from there going into the internet by copper or fiber. Is that your question?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that makes sense.
This is the internet service provider, right? Or maybe in my building, this is my satellite, and now I connect my satellite to the phone systems here. I can also connect directly to the satellite, who then goes back to the main office, and I can get the information. So depending, this could be the ISP, or this could be my office too, because that's my main office where all the servers are and all that stuff. I have that connection through there, and now people remotely can connect through the satellite into my network.
Got it. Can that be considered infrastructure mode?
I'm sorry?
Can that be classified as infrastructure mode since it's
It's a connection. It's just a way to connect to the internet. So that's the same as your DSL, same as your cable, same as your fiber optic, same as your ISDN. They're all a type of connection to the internet.
got it.
Lack of a better name, the media, I believe, is what we were saying before.
Media.
Is it media? Yeah, media is the one that travels, right? Media.
Yeah, the cable
there's
or the
devices.
line.
We said media, so that would be your media or your medium that you're traveling through. That's the connection to the internet on the WAN side. This is all WAN connections. All of these are all WAN connection, nothing to do with LAN. So dial-up, that's a WAN connection. ISDN, WAN. My DSL, WAN. Anybody can make, why is fiber optic in this case WAN? Can I use fiber optic for LAN?
Not realistic.
Why wouldn't I be able to use fiber optic for LAN?
I mean, you could, but it's not very realistic for most people since it's very expensive and it's very specific uses, more for a provider.
Okay. What happens when I have the MDF here, and then I have the IDF here, number one, and this is 750 feet away? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna connect this closet with this closet?
750 feet. You can use optic for that because I think that, I don't know feet very well, but I think that's past 100 meters.
I would have to go fiber optic, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you use fiber optic inside your facility, is to connect one distribution frame, your main distribution frame, to any remote closet, because you want it to be as stable as possible and as fast as possible. We know that fiber optic can go up to 10G, and it can sustain the connection much, and it's more reliable than copper. And I have my problem here of distance.
How much is 750 feet in meters?
Just remember, it's 325 feet, 100 meters.
Okay, thank you.
Anything beyond 325 feet, people usually put 300, but I believe it's 325 feet is the exact number. So here you usually will see either short haul, which will be from your house, going into the little box that's near your house, and then long haul going back to the pop, which is like your AT&T or whoever it is. Any questions? So those are your two uses for fiber. One for your internet or your wide area network versus your LAN. I think I'm gonna become an artist by the time I finish this. I'm gonna sell my paintings.
Sorry, I already took one of your paintings.
You gotta pay, bro. Can't be using it.
Come on, there can't be royalties for free art.
Alexa, can you help me out with this one, please?
Wireless connection, cellular communication. Requires a cellular service provider. It has involved other different technologies. First generation 1G used analog data. 2G used GSM technology. 3G used GPRS and edge technology. 4G uses long-term evolution technology, can achieve speeds up to 300 Mbps downloading at 75 Mbps uploading. 5G, which is just now seen in the US, has the capability of 10 Gbps download with super low latency.
Thank you. Everybody understand what the G means?
Does that mean generation?
Yes, sir. So be very careful. Don't think that that means. I remember a lot of my friends when they go, oh, I got a 5G or I got the 4G. I'm going 4 gigs. No, my friend. You're not going 4 gigs. You're just in the 4th generation of the technology. It's all it's telling you. Obviously, the 5G is the fastest, and it's going up to 10 gigabits download. Download, keyword, download. They can never guarantee that upload. Just don't, they won't guarantee you it uploads the same. So let's think about this. We learned what a PAN was the other day. We learned what LAN was. We have the MAN, and now we have the WAN. So in reference to your wireless communications, here's the distances as we stated before. You have your PAN, which is your personal area network. The standard is called 802.15. Got to know that number. Same thing as 802.11. The LAN Wi-Fi, the standard from the IEEE is 802.11, 150 meters. That's the distance that it actually reaches the antenna. And usually you don't want to go always to the max. So if you're getting towards that threshold, you get a second access point so that I can overlap and have a good covering zone. Next area, which is a little further, is your MAN, which is the Y max. Now you can see where the Y max comes out. That goes up to 50 kilometers. And lastly, you have, again, still the mobile Y max versus the fixed Y max, which is a fixed antenna one versus the mobile one. You have the 150 kilometers. And that's the 802.20. Any questions on the wireless network communications types?
Just clarification for mobile, is that where the generation, like G1 and G2, kind of propagates?
You're talking about the WiMAX?
Oh yeah, where would phone cellular band start?
I don't think I understand your question. Sorry.
What? Like for example, we're using 4G. Which band would that be? Like 802.20?
It has nothing to do with G. Nothing to do with the previous window that we were talking about here. That's not the G technology that I'm aware of.
But this is a picture of like all the
actually no
bands, right?
802.16, I believe, is the mobile internet access of higher band speeds. That's the 802.16. But the 802.20 for it, that's the different one. That's the actual mobile broadband of that. What was that antenna that I was talking about earlier? Now I got confused on where I was. It's basically the one that I was talking about earlier, which is on a different band, the 802.20.
So there is no like cellular wireless communication in this picture, right? It's just referring to Wi-Fi kind of related, correct?
Correct. Broadband wireless access, correct.
Okay.
Now, how do I get a PAN wireless access? How can I get that? Anybody ever do that? The 802.15?
A lot of time that's Bluetooth, right? Like
correct. But how do I use that for the internet?
For the internet? Bridget.
Right? Yeah, for those that were able to figure out before hotspots were available on your actual phone, people were pretty slick enough to actually bridge their actual Bluetooth to the iPad. So I would connect Bluetooth from here to my phone and then bridge the connection on my phone, like I showed you earlier, where I can bridge the wired to the actual Wi-Fi connection. The same exact thing, except those two bridge technologies that I'm doing there is in reference to my actual mobile data and the Bluetooth. I wasn't using the actual access point at that time.
I'm just curious, will your provider know if you're using your phone's Bluetooth for the internet? Because I know they kind of charge you to use hotspot.
Some of them caught on to it. And the reason why they caught on to it was because of the amount of traffic that was coming from that phone. Not because they knew what was going on. It was just the amount of traffic that the phone was pulling. Especially, I was doing it to a BlackBerry. So those guys didn't have Netflix or any of that stuff. So they kind of catch on. Back in the day, nobody was really using their phone for internet connection because those smartphones didn't have all those features that they have now. And if you were, even if you had Netflix, it was annoying with the little thing. So now I got the big iPad and I can see Netflix here.
The reason why I asked it because I need better internet really badly. So I'm thinking about what I used to do. But I got caught. And they kind of like, they actually throttle you heavily.
AT&T will send you a letter real quick. AT&T is one of the ones that can catch on real quick. They'll send you a letter letting you know what they think about your slickness.
I mean, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. There he is, tethering. The features may be branded as mobile hotspot, obviously, allowing share internet connections from your phone to your tablet. Obviously, since they caught on, they started charging for this feature so that if the user uses it, they obviously are now paying for the bandwidth. Any questions on that one? I mean, we're kind of in that one already. Next slide. We have here is the IEEE standards, is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. That's the name of the institute. Basically is to align the standards and make sure that everybody is using the same throughout all networks. Because you could just imagine, if there's no standards in the signaling of the ones and zeros in any of these, there's chaos. Because then how can the actual machine translate the actual signals into ones and zeros and to be able to transmit? Each one has its own, the logical link or the LLC has its own standard. The CSMA CD for Ethernet has its own standard. Token ring has its own standard. MANs have their own standard, and so does wireless LAN. The one that's real cool is the token ring, as I stated, that literally would send what they consider is a token. So it was like passing the hot potato. So I got the hot potato. I'm able to talk. Go. If anybody saw Lord of the Flies, it was like having the conch. So you had the conch, you can speak, then you can give it to somebody else, now they can speak. So it was a very cool technology. That was to avoid collisions, because if we remember at that time, there was hubs. So these hubs would have a lot of collisions. So the only thing that they could do is create a token and ensure that nobody talks unless if you have the token. Now, how did Ethernet resolve this thing? They actually had a collision detection system. So it had a little algorithm which it would multiply by a big prime number, and then that many nanoseconds before you can actually talk again. Mind you, there was a collision, so each one had a different prime number sporadically that it would pick to ensure that the next time somebody's gonna talk, there's no collisions. That was still on the hub network. Obviously, on the switched networks, everybody's on a different collision domain, so Ethernet still has that feature in case if somebody connects a hub to the switch, but the switch usually is now controlling it since each individual port is in its own collision, its own broadcast domain. So usually there's no collisions anyway. unless if you're going over fiber and everybody's, you know, using that port to go out. Questions, doubts?
Okay, so 802 logical link control, that's referring to your second layer, right?
Correct.
And then the same thing for 802.3, but that's just the wired, right?
The 802.3 is the Ethernet standard. That's the one for Ethernet.
Okay, so what's the difference from 802.2 and 802.3?
Two different languages. If any lack of any other type of, it's your own different signaling. Remember, the standard's about the signaling, right? So LLC is talking in a different language than 802.3 on the same copper. Token ring, the same thing. It's talking a different language because it's using a token to be able to get around the actual thing. Versus here, everybody can talk at the same time. If there's a collision, it will then adjust the time to let the flow of the traffic.
Got it.
That's just a standard so that everybody knows how to create the equipment to speak in that language. That's at least as simple as layman's terms as I can try to put it without going into technical terms in detail. Any other question? So each of them, like I said, that's the number that's associated with the standard that the IEEE came up with to make sure that there's everyone is talking the same language, same signaling. Ethernet. It's the most popular that is being used right now, especially because of the feature that I just told you, which is the collision detection. It's a great feature. It obviously avoids all the complications that is in token ring, which has obviously, like I said, token ring is even worse than the Lord of the Flies because literally it would be that you need to pass the conch to every single person that's in that circle to ensure that every single time, even if you have nothing to say, you have to tell me, I got nothing to say. Here you go. So that was a problem in reference to that. Now it's logical. It can be bus, physical star, ring, or hybrid. The bus would be is because I only have one switch. That's it. I'm riding the bus. That's it. I'm here. I'm nowhere else. Physical star, as we know, would be then the all the spokes going out to all of the different units. And then a ring is when I have several switches connected together, right? That creates a ring. Or I can create either a mesh or a star/ring where I have a master switch with a secondary switch which only has fiber ports, and then all of the child, the ones that actually have the Ethernet ports, will be connecting via fiber to those two master ones. That will create a star topology/ring, because even in the IDF, I'm going to create a stack of 4 with copper. The first one is going to have a fiber going back to that distribution where I said those 2 only fiber ones. So that creates a actual hybrid there. Here we are with my beautiful, beautiful drawing. That's my 2 main switches of fiber. I may have 4 switches here. Woo. So this guy here, he's going to have fiber going to this guy. This guy here, you'll have fiber going into this guy here. Then from one to the other, I'll have copper going to this guy, copper going to this guy, copper going into this guy. Questions? And I repeat it with every closet. So then you'll have spokes going everywhere out to these different IDFs. So this guy will be responsible for making sure that all the closets connect to him. Questions? Doubts? So the base 10, T, 2, 5, 100, all of these we kind of covered the other day. You have your wireless Ethernet, the A, B, G, and an AC. As we remembered, we have the old 10 base T, which only goes 10 megabytes. Anybody know how fast goes fast Ethernet?
I guess that's 100 megabytes since it says 100 base.
Ooh, yeah, that is correct. How about this guy here? 10,000 base T, gigabit Ethernet.
A gig.
Thank you. Any questions?
We'll be going in more details about the Wi-Fi Ethernet, like A, B, G, N, and AC.
I believe it's coming in soon, I think, if I recall in the slides. So we have our wired versus wireless connections. We have our copper cable that we saw before. We've seen fiber optic. We've seen single mode versus multi-mode fiber. So there it is, the SMF, MMF, single mode fiber, multi-mode fiber. So which one goes very long distances and which one goes short distances?
Single mode is
Single
for
mode.
long haul.
Yeah.
Okay. And then multi-mode is for short haul, right? Then you have your Wi-Fi, you have your Bluetooth, and you have your infrared. Each one, as you can see, the furthest one, medium, and this one literally feet, right? Line of sight feet. So you have your Wi-Fi characteristics, the wireless Ethernet networks, radio waves that communicate. Networks today is basically on the 802.11. It's the fastest that it's been in years. It's obviously a great feature that has been come up. Prior to that, as I said, we had SneakerNet. Then we were all fell in love, but we were basically dragging a piece of cable all over the place. And then Wi-Fi came out and we fell in love, especially these hotspots. So, need to understand how Wi-Fi works itself. Wi-Fi, at least the 2.4 gigahertz band is the one that gives the most problems with interference. You have to ensure that you use either 1, 6, or 11. Why is this? If you see here in the little chart that they provide to us, you'll notice that 1 overlaps all the way up to channel 3. That's channel 1. That's how far his frequency will actually create noise in another channel. Now 6 is the only one that then only goes up to 4 and ensures that if there is anything, there is no cross contamination of information. 1s and 0s, right? Again, if you look at 11, he's the only one then that ensures that you do not cross contaminate with the previous area. You can call this zone A or 1, as they usually call it. You can call this zone B, which is usually called 6 because that's the channel you need to be in. Or you can call it C, which it must be 11. It's as easy as A, B, C. So whenever you put out an antenna A, if you have 2 other antennas, they must go like that, A, B, C. So if I keep on putting antennas around, I need to make sure what letter should be here then. I have A, B, C. I put B here. What should be the letter that I put here if there's another antenna that I'm going to put? A, right? He's the only one that's not near me. I have C near me. I have B near me. So that would be channel 1, channel 6, channel 11, channel 6, channel 1. So if I was a large facility and I need to cover various areas, that's how I need to align my access points so that it does not cross-contaminate. Any questions?
I got 2 questions. One is related to the FCC, because I know that there are certain channels we're not allowed to use when you're within certain facilities. Do we need to know that for the exam?
There's channels for the FCC on the 2.4 gigahertz band. I've never heard of that.
Like, there's certain channels, like for example, for the hospital that you're not allowed to use. There's a regulation. It's only for the hospital to use that specific band and channel. I know that because it's Network Plus. I was reading about that and I'm like confused about that. When you're allowed to use it and not allowed to use it. But I'm guessing that's only for the Network Plus.
Yeah, not in this one. I'm not aware of the 2.4 gigahertz band being any channel illegal. I'm aware of radio frequencies. There is some frequencies that are not allowed, but as for the wireless, the only rules that I'm aware of is the one that I just told you, 1, 6, and 11. That's what you must know. Or when it comes
Got
to
it. And my second question is, best practice is 1, 6, 11. But in the real world, would it look a little bit different?
1, 6, and 11. If you want to do it right. If you want it to work, 1, 6, and 11. There is no such thing as putting anything on 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 12, 11, or 14.
It just wouldn't work, right?
If you want it to work correctly, yeah, I mean, I could put, if I only have channel 2, it'll work.
The reason why I asked, because let's say you're in a very clouded area and you only have access to like a 2.4 gigahertz, you may be forced to pick a different channel, right?
Can't. Just look at it. If I pick channel 2, I'm going to be still inside channel 1's frequency. And I'll be going into channel 5. If I pick 3, I'm even worse because now I'm in channel 1 and I'm in channel 5. If I pick 4, again, I'm hurting. I'm inside channel 5. I'm in channel 1 area, and I'm in channel 6 area. So any of these numbers in the middle would be even worse because then you'll be cross-contaminating within these zones, the megahertz itself.
So this is why the 2.4 gigahertz have so much interference, because it's a very small band.
It's a very the gigahertz band. If you don't if you put it in any other channel, you will overlap each other, and it creates interference. What happens is, I'll explain to you now, is that basically, if let's say if I put everything, we'll keep it simple. I'll put 1 here, I put 1 here, I put 1 here, and I put 1 here. Forget about the cross contamination because it's the same thing. What happens is, since I have the same exact name and they are near each other, these antennas broadcast, my beautiful circle, they broadcast around. So when you walk from here to here, it believes, although the signal was lost to this MAC address, it believes that it's still talking to this MAC address because the signal of the antenna is still in the same channel and the strength of the channel is still good. Therefore, I continue to use that channel without a problem. Problem is, it's obviously not talking to that guy, and at one point, it's not going to reach him. Creates latency, creates problems, and interference if I have a channel that bleeds into one into another.
For 5G, is it the same numbers, like the channel numbers you want to use, or?
5 doesn't have this problem. You'll see it now. There is zones that they reserve for them. I believe they have it in the next slide. If not, we'll look at a chart now. Let's see if I can figure out how to erase this thing again. Clear all drawings. Thank you. Okay, they didn't show it. Give me a second. Let's see if it's over here. Of course they did. Let's see. Here he is, yeah. So you can see, no, that's not very good. I have this one. So they have these areas here, depending on the hertz that you choose and the areas that you can actually, and I believe the reds are the ones that are reserved that you cannot use. And I believe that's the channels that you were talking about in hospitals and or different places that you're not allowed to use. So you got this big, see the range there? Is it like 38, 46, 54, 62, 102. These are the different areas. Much
They're
bigger.
called areas, not channels, right?
I believe it's the channel, sorry.
Oh, it's like a channel range.
Uh-huh. That's the channel range there. I wish there was a better picture that we could find. See it here. Wi-Fi channels, 36 to 48, 52. Those are DSF channels, weather radar. You see? Those are the channels that you're talking about that people shouldn't be in. But that's not necessary that I'm aware of for the A+ to know. So let's go back over here. Not, we already watched. So you have the 802.11a. Sorry about that. That supports up to 54 megabytes, uses the 5 gigahertz band. The B is 11 megabytes and uses a 2. The 11G supports up to 54. It operates in the 2.4, not at the 5 gigahertz band, and offers compatible to this one because obviously it's in the same band. So the G could talk with B.
Is it safe to think of it like as an upgrade? Since it seems like they're like the same thing, except that they use a little bit different technology to have a faster internet.
The same, yeah. Well, it operates at a higher speed. You can, yeah, you can say that. You can say that's why they all have 11s. So they're all the same thing. They're all 802.11. If you notice. So these are the different versions of the 802.11. 802.11 means that it's a Wi-Fi, and depending on the letter tells you what is the band that is using the gigahertz and the speed. The version, yes, it is an upgrade, obviously, of that same technology. 802.11 can operate on both bands. It can operate on 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz, or both simultaneously. That was the great thing about and it actually achieves this through the MIMO, which is the multiple input, multiple output technology. Uses multiple antennas to be able to transmit. That's what you see on those N routers. Now what they have several antennas is it's using those different channels or different antennas to be able to create the high bandwidth, and it gives you up to 600 megabytes per second. Obviously, that's up to. That's just always look at it as that's beautiful, but are you always at 600? No, especially since what's your bandwidth at home? What's your download speed? Remember, that only gets you as fast to get you to the antenna, but after that, what's your actual speed? It's usually whatever your computer has going out to the internet and to the other devices. 802.11ac, that works only on the 5 gigahertz band. Obviously, that was a little bit, now has a band up to 8 channels, using again the MIMO you can actually achieve 1 gigabyte per second. That's the 802.11ac. Questions on the N or the AC?
I got a question on the AC because on the Mike Myers book, it said that AC was compatible with, I think it was B and G, and I was thinking, how's that possible if it only uses the 5 gigahertz band? Is there a way to install a 2.4 gigahertz on that specific thing?
You sure it's not with A? Oh, okay. What you're saying is that the router has the capability. Yeah, for the AC. That's what you mean? It's backwards compatible to B, G, and N?
Yes, that. So even though it's designed to only for 5, it is able to go do 2.4, right?
I believe so, because the router itself in the inside has the capabilities. But the AC, let's say the actual thing, AC is on the 5 gigahertz band itself.
Oh, so it's referring to like if you want to use the actual AC, it's 5 gigs, 5 gigahertz only, and
Correct.
it's backwards compatible.
Uh-huh. But it's backwards compatible so that the device, the equipment, will be able to use the other one. But obviously, you're going to be on the other channel, on the 2.4 gigahertz, because those channels only speak in that gigahertz. They don't speak to the other. Question?
Thank you. No, thank you. That was something I got super confused with yesterday.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we are. Dr. Hadley, Dr. Hulsenberg. All right, so you have the A was a 99, so was B that came out 99. You have your 5 and your 2 gigahertz. You have 54 versus 11. Your distance is 400 versus 450. Then later came out the G, which goes up to 54 megabits, megabits, not bytes. If it had a big B, that would be megabytes. If it has a little b, that's megabits. Just to let you guys know what's the difference. So what's the difference between megabits and megabytes? Can somebody tell me?
Megabits is the actual bit form, and megabyte is the actual byte form. In other words, the megabits are smaller, megabytes are a lot bigger.
Yeah, so megabits is 1 megabit, or just 1,000 bits per second. 1 megabyte per second is equivalent to 8 times that much, right? Because there's 8 bits in 1 byte. So you'll be able to transmit, obviously, much faster in megabytes than megabits. Be very careful, because Wi-Fi is all on megabits per second, gigabits per second. When we were talking about the wired, did I tell you it was megabits or megabytes, or gigabits or gigabytes?
Bytes.
So if we go back. Oh no, it didn't have it here. This was in megabytes, right? Look at the big 10 base bytes land. That's why people got confused when they started seeing these things come out and think it was faster than regular Ethernet. It's not. It's sending in megabits, not megabytes. Any questions on the variances and or channels or capabilities? All of this, obviously, especially distance, requires line of sight. Can somebody tell me what line of sight means?
Whatever transmitters have to be able to see each other.
They have to be able to see each other. Does it mean that it is a must Does that mean that if the antenna cannot see you, I won't get a connection?
Not 100%. You just have to be in the general vicinity, almost, and not
Actually, no,
not obstructed.
I was wrong. Actually, Ethernet is in megabits. T1s are the ones that are megabytes, I think. Or DSLs. I was wrong with that. Sorry about that. In reference to the line of sight, what happens is if there's a wall or anything, you think of it as a beam or a prism. Anybody know what a prism is? If you shine light through this little crystal, you see how it all of a sudden it creates like a rainbow effect of all the colors? Everybody ever see that? No?
I think of Pink Floyd.
Exactly. Yeah, you could think about that in reference into a prism. So just how the light gets split up, gets refracted or diffracted, I don't know. I'm not a scientist here. You can think about the signal the same thing. As soon as it hits the wall, that actually happens. It splits the signal out, the wireless signal, and it actually gets weaker. And that's basically why they're saying line of sight to guarantee the top speeds that they're saying. So, can everybody help us out here with this one? The first one is max data rate of an 802.11a.
Max range, sorry, not max range. Max data is 54 for the A type.
54 what?
Megabits per second.
Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, they already tell us is at the 5 gigahertz, and it's also on 400 feet is the distance. Next one. Who can help me with the next one, please? Someone.
So 450 feet distance.
Everyone agree? 450 feet is the 802.11?
I agree.
No takers except for...
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. All right. 150 feet or 450 feet? You guys have
450.
802.11b supports a range of 450?
Yeah.
I agree.
Correct.
450? Was it 450? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was less. I could have sworn it was much less. Huh? Oh well.
I'll be honest, this chart looks different from the book for me. A little bit. Like very minor differences.
I thought it was 150 feet, but I could be wrong. I may be crazy. I just might have been misinformed. I don't think I'm ever wrong. I just get misinformed time to time. What do you guys think about that?
It's a good way to rationalize it.
802.11g. Who can help me out with that one?
That's going to be 2.4 gigahertz.
Everybody agree? 11G is at the 2.4 gigahertz?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. Next one, who can help us out? Someone new with the 802.11n.
600 megabits.
4.5, I think.
600, I heard, and 45 megabits.
It's
600
600.
megabits.
Okay, how does it do the 600?
It uses MIMO, meaning it uses multiple antennas simultaneously transferring it in order to get that input and output. And uses beamforming as well to reduce dead spots. So it kind of learns where your NIC is, in other words.
Yeah, it kind of knows where your distance and where you're at in the room. Pretty cool what they do there. 802.11c. AC, sorry. AC. Come on. Somebody can do it.
A gigabit per second. I know it's like it passes 1 gigabit.
1.3
1.3
gigabits per second.
Everyone agree? 1.3?
Yep.
I agree.
Okey-dokey.
Need terabytes soon.
There's 1.3. This is we said 600. Any questions or doubts? Right, ad hoc mode. That's basically when you, this is the modes that we're talking about in reference to the actual antennas themselves. Ad hoc mode is peer-to-peer mode, which is wireless node, direct contact with each other node. Ad hoc mode are suited for small groups of computers to transfer files or share printers, usually like Bluetooth. That's what's ad hoc. In other words, you connect peer-to-peer. We also did that, you could say, when we were doing it physically, when you connect one computer to another. Similar to the same thing. Infrastructure mode, that's the one that uses the wireless access point to connect nodes to a wired segment. So then obviously the router and switch is connected to a router, one of those stuff, so that the access point then is in a set of infrastructure mode. It's gonna act like and pass the information there. It won't just be flip-flopping just from one to another. It actually will be looking for an internet connection.
Quick question. What does it mean by referring to a node? Is that referring to like the access point, for example, for AD hoc?
What you're asking in a network, what are nodes?
Yeah, what does that really mean, nodes? Like,
Nodes are either a connection point or a point where a joint of connections. In other words, where each one gets redistribution, each node connecting, be one node to another, or network segment.
got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or doubts? Cool. All right. WEP, which is short for wired equivalent privacy. The most horrible thing that they ever came up with is this name. Anybody know why?
It sucks.
WEP was supposed to be as secure as you being on an actual physical network. Mind you, we said that wireless is broadcasting out there, but this beautiful thing, which was configured, was actually only up to 104 bits of encryption. Sounds like a lot, but for these processing power of these computers, it was actually a fool's game. It also obviously comprised of more than 2 or 3 minutes just to be able to get the actual static key. So it was pretty easy. It didn't take too long. We got the next level that came out, which is the WPA, the Wi-Fi Protected Access. This is a dynamic encryption key that was generated. It requires users to authenticate before the keys are exchanged. It gives you a TKIP, which is a temporary key integrated protocol, which obviously enhanced a little bit more the actual encryption. The keys are issued and an actual check of integrity to verify that it has not been modified and or tampered. This one still wasn't that great as the newer ones.
Is the standard for that called 802.11i?
It only did partial of this standard of security for the 802.11i. Here it was fully implemented now. WPA2 has full implemental of the standard for security of 802.11i. This is the encryption, not to be confused with the other stuff that we were talking about a minute ago. Everybody understand? Has nothing to do with N, has nothing to do with G, nothing to do with AC, nothing to do with A, nothing to do with B. What it does have to do with when I go on any of those channels or any of that technology, they have this encryption type, the security that I'm going to add, because we all agree I am broadcasting this information, and the first one pretty much was in the clear, while WPA2 now created security to avoid the problem of people sniffing on the network. WPA2 also usually has a centralized server for authentication referred to as enterprise mode. And obviously you can set it up where it's not in enterprise mode. You guys have probably done it, which is a PSK, which is obviously personal mode, which is a pre-shared key. In mine, I have it in WPA2 with a pre-shared key. Good luck with that because it's pretty long, but it is. And I also like the name of my network. I don't know if anybody caught on. What was the name of my network? Called Do Not Enter. Do not enter. I don't know. I thought it was clever. Role of a router. Primary role of router is obviously to allow communication from the LAN to the WAN. It reads IP addresses and then it sends it in and decides if it's going to route it in and leave it alone. One of the two, either route it out or keep it in. It doesn't have to route internal traffic because, as we said, the actual switch itself is in charge of that traffic. Any questions, doubts? WAP centrally connects wired network nodes in the same way as a hub does. So here is a wireless access point in all nodes or all connections. In other words, there might be 12 different ports in the back. Any questions, doubts? Many WAPs obviously usually are at the same time have an internal router for the internet. PoE is a new term or the new, technology that came out for power over the Ethernet. A lot of these times, these WAPs or these wireless access points out there is very difficult to get power. So PoE was created so that it actually, that same cable, the Ethernet cable now, I believe it's on brown, I think it's on brown or on blue, it sends power. All right, guys, I have 12:01. We're going to be stopping here, our session.